1. Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to today's Partner Web Conference. This is Fast Track Dynamics 365 for Finance and Operations Tech Talk. Today's topic, Production Maintenance, Service, and Support. My name is Janice and I'm going to be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this web conference through Teams live events and the audio can be heard through your PC speakers. Today's web conference is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. If you do not consent to be a part of a recorded session, we ask that you please disconnect now. Attendees may access the web conference recording within 72 hours via the same registration link that was used to attend today's live broadcast. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, you can turn on the Q&A panel by selecting the question mark icon located in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. We do have presenters standing by to answer your questions throughout the session. Now on to the presentation. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Senior R&D Solution Architect, Christopher Lim. So without any further delay, Christopher, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Janice. All right, so let's get started with this tech talk on the servicing, supporting, and maintenance of production. Just before we get to the content, as Janice said, we have several solution architects from Fast Track to help you with the questions. So really, if you have any questions even now, don't hesitate to shoot them directly in the Q&A panel. They will answer as we continue the presentation. So, about this tech talk. We've seen in many cases that many customers don't really focus on how to maintain, how to support, and how to service production properly after the go live. There's a ton of energy which is produced to create the solution to get to the first go live, but in most cases, not a lot on how to support it best. So hopefully within this hour, you will learn more about those three important topics. What we want to do basically is help you understand what are the different servicing actions with finance operations so that you can be as efficient as possible. We want to help you with the support process, which is not always robust. And by improving the support process, you could actually achieve a faster time to resolution for your incidents. And we want to provide you some guidance on how to keep production healthy with the maintenance. Keep in mind that we're not going to cover any demonstration of the tools. For example, the LCS environment monitoring. This would be something you can actually find in another tech talk on the performance troubleshooting tools. We're not going to cover any advanced theory, and I'm thinking about ITSM and the part related to support. And we're not going to cover any retail or on-premise deployments aspects. However, we do have a solution architect specialized on retail. So if you have questions on that, you can ask that, as I said, during the conference. The agenda is very simple. We're going to talk about servicing first, meaning the interactions with the finance operations environments. Then we'll cover supporting, how to best handle incidents and issues happening on production. And then the maintenance, the hygiene of production. At the end, recap all of that in a simple responsibility matrix, which is basically an Excel spreadsheet that I'm going to show you, and that will be, which will be available on the Infopedia page for this tech talk. So let's start with servicing. And I just want to come back on the term itself, because we have many acronyms within Microsoft, many terms. When I'm talking about servicing, I'm really focusing on the interactions that you, as the customer or the partner, will have with your finance and operations environments or related artifacts, the code and the data. The service that you have purchased is a SaaS service provided by Microsoft. There are in the end two important parts in this service, the one which is managed by Microsoft and the other part which is managed by you with the support of an implementation partner. What Microsoft is going to handle is basically two things: the underlying infrastructure, the backbone, and the standard application, all those nice functionalities that you are using. If there's anything going wrong in those areas, it's Microsoft's commitment to go and get them fixed. The other side, though, is very, very important because, as I said, the commitment from Microsoft is to deliver this scalable platform. Any problem that would happen on the infrastructure would be investigated and fixed by our teams. Same thing for the standard solution. If there was a bug, we'd create a hotfix for that, get it resolved. But you always need to think about the other part of your implementation solution. It's all those building blocks that you have added along the way as you were implementing finance operations. The processes that you're actually covering, all the customizations that you have done, including integration, the analytics, the reporting, maybe ISVs, solutions that you have added, the users themselves with how you educated them, the devices they use, and more importantly, the data configuration that you've done, and all the transactions that you're going to add. All those building blocks, they could actually disrupt the service. So always keep in mind that in your solution that is live, there will be this part that is managed by Microsoft, the infrastructure and the standard solution. And there will be everything on top of that that you have added, and which bring complexity. Focusing on Microsoft. As a project team, where it's actually the customer or the partner doing it, there will be different types of servicing scenarios you will cover. We can categorize them in three groups. What is self-service actions, which means that we'll be able to act on an environment without any help from Microsoft, without waiting for anyone else from Microsoft. For example, when you deploy an environment, this is self-service action. When you deploy the code on a non-production environment, it's also self-service action. That's really our objective. Make as much interactions with finance operations as self-service as possible. The second category is going to be the service request, where for a specific set of services, you need the assistance of the Dynamics Service Engineering team, DSE, which is the team managing your infrastructure or the environments managed by Microsoft. And finally, there will be exceptional cases. For example, when you need to do a resizing of the production environment, where you need to go through the Microsoft support channel. So let's see a couple of examples so that it's clear. As I said, for self-service, it's really our objective because they are those actions where there is no lead time, it's directly actionable. You start the action, there's no wait time, it starts right away. I mentioned the case for the code promotion. It's now also the case for the database movements between non-production environment. If you want to do a refresh of the sandbox database from a copy of production, point-in-time restore on a sandbox. The other recent new functionalities that were added in LCS are on the performance actions, which will allow you to work directly on SQL actions, and the production upgrade. If you had to move from 7.1, 7.2, or 7.3 to 8.1 or plus, you may have seen that now it's a full self-service experience. And I think it's very symbolic of why we're moving away from actions with DSE. Before, in the old model, you needed to wait for DSE to acknowledge your request for a production upgrade. Now, as it's self-service, it's when you want. So you don't have to wait for anyone else. It also removes the human factor from the servicing scenarios. So it has a higher reliability as well. The service requests where DSE is going to be involved are in the end very limited. DSE is working against the services catalog. So it's a menu, just like in a restaurant, where you can pick up what you want to do. The deployment of environments, I was mentioning that it's no longer DSE. To be clear on this, we're introducing a new model in the infrastructure, and currently targeted customers will see that DSE is no longer required, that they have self-service environment deployments. Now, the concrete cases where you would use the service request are, for example, the code promotion to production, any point in time restore that you would do before go live, for example, with the mock cutovers, or any database initialization from a tier 2, 3, 4, 5 to production and before go live. When you ask for a service request, you may have also noticed there is this other type. It's for specific cases such as the IP whitelist rule. You have the configuration of the DSE DO. Those scenarios are documented on docs, and we'll have a look at the article right after. The last category for the servicing scenarios are the exceptional cases. If it's not available by a self-service, if it's not available as a service request with DSE, then you should go through a support request. The common cases are, for example, when customers ask for production point in time restore after go live, it means that something went wrong somewhere. There is potentially data corruption, so you will have to open a support request so that there's an investigation done. You don't want to do a point in time restore, which could really corrupt or break the operations. Common cases where we see support requests post go live, apart from all the incidents, it's, for example, the flighting features. If you take the customer and vendor master data sharing, for example, it's only for approved customers. So you will open a support request to ask for the feature. And also, if you have multiple go lives in your rollout, it could be that in the next go live, there will be more users, more licenses purchased, more transactions as well. In this case, you would need a production resizing, potentially. So again, it would be a support ticket that you open, presenting the new usage profile so that a resizing is performed. When you work with DSE, keep those practices in mind. Those best practices, they will really help you, because we have seen cases where the customer was really frustrated when interacting with DSE. If you understand how they work, then things will become a lot easier. The first point is taking into account their SLAs. They are documented. They are on docs, as you can see on the right side. And here's the article. So you can plan your releases, the interactions accordingly. For the code deployment, specifically for production, keep in mind that there's no simple way to chain the deployment of packages. So we recommend you to combine them and minimize the number as much as possible. One package, it's one downtime. Two packages, it's going to be two downtimes, etc., etc. And there's an article which will help you to get this done. Ultimately, it's going to simplify a lot your deployments. Now, make sure that you never use the comment section of DSE on their service requests to ask for more, to add new instructions, because DSE will not read them. If there is anything that is outside of the menu, make sure to open a support ticket. It will be more adapted. And as I said, it will work against the services catalog. So if it's not there, even in the other type, then open a support ticket. As I said, DSE is the team focusing on the infrastructure. In terms of business continuity, keep in mind that only production is HADR enabled. Only production is protected through high availability and disaster recovery features. We're using actually premium SKUs for the database storage and for the file storage as well, so that they get geo-replicated real time to achieve the SLA of our service. The 99.9% covers the planned maintenance that happens on a monthly basis for 3 hours downtime. As you could see in the previous picture, we are currently using SQL, the blob storages, but also virtual machines. It means that it's not really important for the customers what it is working on, but we're using VMs. So those VMs will be patched every month. As I was mentioning before, there are now new customers who will no longer see the VMs, and it's because we're introducing this new model, which is self-service deployments without the VMs. Coming back to the SLA, in case of an actual disaster where the data center, the primary data center is down, it would basically take 10 hours to give you back a working production environment on the secondary site that you have selected. So the choice is very important. The data loss would be less than 5 seconds. Additionally, on the planned maintenance, note that with one version, if you leave the automatic updates to Microsoft, there will be additionally an extra downtime on a monthly basis for the months where there's actually an automatic update. On the database, we're using a native functionality of Azure SQL to keep continuous backup up to 30 days. And it's basically every 5 minutes, the snapshot. So if you wanted to go with more than 30 days, you would need to find your own way to do so. For example, what you could do is take a copy of production to a tier 2, 3, 4, 5, and then from there export the database and keep that in a separate storage. The backups, they will never leave the RCS project. Maintain confidentiality on your data. And keep in mind that the extra copies you're doing on the Azure SQL managed by Microsoft, they will be deleted after 7 days and without warning. So always consider that. So we covered the servicing scenarios. Now let's get to supporting. And when I talk about supporting, it's how to deal efficiently with the incidents, the issues that may happen on production. And let's start with the content. The support team that you will build in-house or with the support of a partner, they will need to be trained on the solution that they have. For the standard parts, they can leverage different types of resources. And we've done a big effort with finance operations to make them centralized and simpler to read. So for example, in docs, we'll find all the detailed procedures and descriptions on the features. With the tech talks, there will be a focus on the new things, the good practices, potential demonstrations as well. And we invest a lot also in the communities themselves, either on the team blogs or on the Yammer groups. And on top of that, there will be what you have added in LCS, and for example, with the task guides or your processes that are covered. Now, it's not enough to be ready. In most cases, you have customized your solution, you have configured it in a complex way with a partner. And they will become the initial line of support because they will have this holistic view of what has been implemented, what has been added on top of it. So you will definitely need, in a way, to get the functional and technical knowledge from the partner, either by an additional contract or by a knowledge transfer. But having this knowledge is very important if you want to support efficiently your solution post-go live. Finally, in case of an issue with the infrastructure or the standard solution, you would reach out to Microsoft and do consider what would be the contract to be used. There are cases where we see customers benefiting from a unified or the old name Premier support contract, and the finance operations team is not even aware of it. So they don't use that, despite the fact that it has better SLA. Subscription is the free plan, so this is what all customers get by default. There's an important change that was made to the subscription support level several months ago. It's very important that you read this to understand what are the new benefits. But in short, the severity A tickets, they will now be covered on a 24/7 basis, and it will be a commitment of less than 1 hour for the initial response time. So this is a huge gain from before. I would still suggest that you compare the different support plans that are possible to make sure that you get maximum value out of them. For example, with Unified, there may be proactive services that you're interested into, such as a performance review or a code review or training sessions. So here is the website where you can actually see what's going to be the best support plan for your business. No matter what's your support plan, do make sure that you understand the severity when working with the Microsoft support and use them wisely. And I'm talking about the two cases. Sometimes you're going to put a severity A, whereas it's actually a severity B, but also vice versa. Sometimes you're going to put a severity B, whereas it's a severity A. Let's describe them very briefly. Severity C, no impact on the productivity. It is important to get fixed, but it's not blocking the operations. Severity B, it is a major issue, but you have a workaround, so there's no immediate interruption of work. Severity A and production outage, those are the important ones, which are blocking production. For severity A, we will be focused on a component which stops working and which is breaking the operations. Production outage, that would be the maximum level. It's a production down scenario where no user can log in. The batch jobs, they are not running. It is impossible to print anything whatsoever. Those are the prod down scenarios. The difference between the two, and you can refer to the docs article for more detail, is that when you have a production outage, in LCS, when you report it, within 30 minutes, an engineer will start investigating the problem. And in parallel, it will create a severity A ticket so that Microsoft support is informed and there's a formal tracking and communication. One important thing to do whenever you have a production outage, if you work with a TAM or a fast track solution architect, let them know for awareness. In most cases, it's likely that you will need to take a hotfix for those high severity cases and in emergency. So I will not go too much into detail, but you will need to work with your technical team to adjust the application lifecycle management after go live. It will allow you to be efficient whenever there's a production down scenario, whenever there's a SFA case. You will be able to rapidly troubleshoot without disrupting the project team, and you will be able to rapidly take a hotfix. Production will have its own source code in a separate branch, meaning that if you wanted to have a targeted hotfix, the developer would be able to work on the production source code without interrupting the project team working on the next release, the next feature. And as you would need to create the package for this hotfix, you would need a separate build server. And as you would need to validate the hotfix, you would need a specific tier 2, such as pre-prod environment, to validate it. If you don't have this part in the diagram, if you are not ready with emergency troubleshooting and emergency patching, what will happen is that in the code, all developers need to remove what's not finished, what's not validated, do not create regressions, and you need to redeploy the environments so that they are like production. One quick note, you will see 2 sandbox. We know that most of the time you will have only one, but we've seen plenty of cases where it's actually 2. One for the partner, validate first, and then the sign off, the UAT from the customer. And all those points that we've discussed, it's important to formalize them into your support process. The different levels, the actions that will be taken at each step to the resolution, considering it every time who is going to do what, using what tools, whenever there's an incident declared. And there will always be 2 paths. The hot path to mitigate the issue and block the end users. And when it's major, very impactful, a cold path to analyze what's causing this and making sure that it doesn't happen again with a long-term protection plan. This will really influence the time you take to get an incident resolved. Having a proper process with a proper triage, an initial troubleshooting or pre-investigation, and a real solution finding path is key. And I will give you 2 examples that are based on my own experiences with real customers. This that I call the FastlT team, which was really mature on their support process. For example, they involved very early the IT operations team on their organization to get them ready for the go live. And post go live, they really adjusted the ALM, the application lifecycle management, to get the release branch and also to get the environments for emergency patching. So here's what happened. On day 0, the incident was declared by the end user. And in their support process, they have enforced a template model. So when he opened the ticket, he had to provide the context, what he was trying to achieve, the reproduction steps, the logs, and additional details that they enforced. So level 1, when they got the call, when they got the ticket, they were able to quickly qualify the issue. They were looking for potential solutions in their KB, their knowledge book, but ultimately they routed to level 2. Level 2, they started to do the troubleshooting in the pre-prod environment, which was same code and same data as production. And they identified the faulty customization. So for the solution finding, they just opened an internal bug so that it's picked up by the developer to get this fixed. They were able to use the release branch, so they rapidly developed this tiny and targeted hotfix and they could rapidly create the package, get it validated on the pre-prod environment, which was exactly like production. Ultimately, within 3 days, they were able to get the problem resolved and the hotfix to production. It may sound long, and I think that it can even be more optimized. But if you consider the second case, which is also a real case I had for a large customer, you will see the difference. In this case, with SlowlT, the customer who really did not think about the support process, here's what happened. On day 0, the end user opened this issue. It's slow. You don't have any detail. You don't know what's the process related to that. What were the different actions done? So as level 1 gets the call, gets the ticket, of course, they need more details. And they would then contact this user and waste time. Ultimately, they push this to level 2 for the pre-investigation and initial troubleshooting. But level 2 was not trained for that. The project team, they did not have time to do some shadowing, to train this support team. So because they lack knowledge, they go directly to the next level. The next level being the provider, Microsoft. And they open a support ticket to Microsoft support with 4 details. And here is the important part. Quality inputs from the users will mean quality investigation. Microsoft, when they get the support ticket open, they will have the same reaction as level 1. There's not enough detail here. So then they will start to ask basic questions to level 2, which will then ask the end user. And now we're in a cycle of emails and of meetings just to collect information about the case. 2 days later, on day 5, Microsoft can finally start the investigation. They have the trace, and in parallel, the customer is escalating already because it's been 5 days. And it's understandable because not being able to use the system for 5 days, it's a lot of frustration. But Microsoft continues the investigation and they find out that it's coming from the faulty customization, causing this performance issue. So they will report back the information to the project team, which will now start working on it. In this case, they did not adjust their application lifecycle management, so they needed to clean up all the unready code, remove the functionalities that were not finished or validated to do this tiny hotfix. And they lost time. Similarly, when they needed to validate the hotfix, they did not have a pre-prod environment, which was like production, where they could reproduce the issue, patch, and confirm the hotfix was doing its job. So they needed to redeploy a tier 2 environment. And so finally, after 12 days, they got the incident resolved. I'm not saying that having a support process will make the resolution 4 times faster, but it will be for sure more efficient. Quality input, it's really quality investigation. So whether it's with Microsoft support, your ISV providers, or level 1, do enforce good inputs from the users whenever there are incidents. The important points being the environment, where it happened, the process, what they were trying to achieve with the reproduction steps, what they expected in terms of results, and what was actually the outcome, the pre-investigation, if it's with Microsoft support or the ASV, and any additional elements like the error message, the screenshots, session ID, and so on. And if it's a step A, never forget to put the business impact and the financial impact. to tell Microsoft support what's the impact on the operations and what's the impact on the financial part. If you have a solid support process with this clear escalation path, you will be able to troubleshoot your production issues in a very efficient way. But the central piece is the pre-investigation and the initial troubleshooting, which means that your teams, they are ready. They know about finance operations and they know how to troubleshoot. The last point is, in case you have a specific support contract, professional or unified, then do reach out to your TAM or your SDM, the technical account manager and the service delivery manager, because they can help you to escalate the support tickets and bugs related to the standard solution. It will really accelerate things if there's no progress. One last remark on the process itself. If it's a severity A, you can open a support ticket in parallel of doing the initial troubleshooting, the pre-investigation. Because if there's something we can do to unblock you, we will. So we've covered servicing, the finance operations environments and their interactions. We've covered supporting production, so how to deal with the issues and the incidents. And now let's talk about maintaining production. And by maintaining, I mean keeping production healthy and optimal. This starts with the cleanup. The ERP is going to have more and more data over time. It's going to be valuable data and it's going to be technical data. Within finance operations, there are multiple cleanup jobs that you will need to use to clean the technical data that has absolutely no value to you. We've seen cases, for example, where after go live, there was no cleanup on the batch shop history, and we started to see performance issues with the batch shop. And after investigation, we could see that actually it had 5 million records. 5 million records that had absolutely no value to the business. So do use those jobs to clean up the batch shop history, the notification tables, if you use it, the DMF staging tables, and the journals. On DMF, one remark, you will see the staging cleanup tile on the data management workspace, and it's going to clean up the staging tables. If you see that the data management workspace is very slow to load or not loading at all, then open a support ticket, because then we'll help you to clean up the system tables that could impact. It's really rare cases, but we've seen some. So it's in the roadmap to get this result for all customers. But if it happens to you, if the data management workspace is slow, open a support ticket. There is this article which is going to describe those actions in more detail. And actually, it's not just the technical part. Depending on what you use in the solution, there will be other purging or cleanup activities to do. So do consider that with your partner and with the consultants. One very nice feature for the cleanup, the good hygiene of production, is the optimization advisor. It will give you the different optimizations opportunities in a very simple format. As you can see on the screen, from there I can actually take action or learn more about what this job is about. The batch job history cleanup, if I don't do it, I will see it on this form. And optimization advisor can be customized with new rules. So as a partner, as an ISV, if you see in your developments that there will be more and more technical data being generated, do use those custom rules. Next to the cleanup is the system maintenance, and specifically those two jobs that were introduced in the platform update 22 for the index maintenance and for the database compression. It will be two batch jobs that you can see in your batch jobs as system administration to make sure that they are planned when the business is not operating, when you have limited activities on the system. We get always this question about the statistics updates for production. Keep in mind that within Microsoft, our infrastructure is monitored by what we call the watchdog. It's our monitoring service, which is going to detect any problems related to the server, the database, and so on, and take action. Action being either an alert to DSE or investigation, troubleshooting, or a self-healing action. You don't really need to know about this because Watchdog is really our internal component, but it's good to understand that this component is able of self-healing. So in the case of status update, if it's needed for a table, it will be performed automatically by Watchdog. Continuing on performance, because the cleanup, system maintenance, it will ensure that the performance are optimal on production. But you need to proactively test the performance as well post go live. It should not be considered before go live only. If you have a new scope, if you have a new geo, a new country for the rollout, if you have new users, new transactions, it may definitely impact the performance and show performance issues. So do make sure to plan those performance testing like you did before go live, before moving on. And as you progress in your rollout, go live 2, 3, 4, 5. In case of actual problems, there will be two main channels where you can see the health of the services. The first one is going to be on the Office portal, where you will see all the Microsoft services and their status. This will show you in a glance if the service is healthy or if there are any major issues. But we'll use primarily the direct emails from LCS. Something like this. In the case of the planned maintenance, the OS patching of the VMs I was describing earlier, it will look like this. Now, it's not going to be just planned maintenance. In case of unplanned maintenance, like the WannaCry attack we saw last year, it will also be an email. With continuous updates and automatic updates, it will also be emails. So do make sure that you read this communication. A simple way to do so is to create a description list with at least 2 people for coverage. And those 2 people, they will have to read and acknowledge the emails from LCS. You want to be aware of the downtime, and you don't want us to apply an update if you're not aware of it. And for those service updates, as you know, after 8.1, we have only one type of update, the service update, which is cumulative by nature. I take the latest one, I get everything that was developed before, and which will contain potentially everything, the application, the platform, and other components, retail, financial reporter, and so on. Those service updates, they are directly deployable, so there is no need to rebuild the package. And with one version, they will be released 8 times per year. There was a recent change. We've put the blog post right here. So you can definitely read it, but in short, what you need to keep in mind with one version, be ready with the maintenance, is that there will be now 3 versions that you can pause. If I took 10.01, I can pause 10.02, 10.03, 10.04, but 10.05 I will need to take. And there will be 4 months in the year where there's no service update, 4 months blank, which are March, June, September, and December. So theoretically, what you could do is take this version, skip 1, 2, and 3, and get in August. So twice a year. We really recommend you to take all service updates because in the end, it will force your organization to get ready with regression testing. And on the long term, it will benefit your organization, whether you need to take a service update, a quality update, or an actual hotfix from the ISV or the partner. So pause only by exception. If you come, for example, to the critical retail period around November, December, January, then you would pause around that time frame. But otherwise, you would take service updates. I mentioned quality update. This is actually pretty new. And what it means is that servicing, as you know, it will happen on the version N and N-1, so generally available, and the one just before. If, for example, I took this version, February, and the general availability is currently July, if I open a ticket, Microsoft support will ask me to try again on the latest version, the July one. And if the issue is still present, then they will investigate. So in this case, it's important to stay current to get this servicing. Now, quality updates, it means that if I'm on the version just before, version in May, July is the general availability, I may get a hotfix just for this version. So the hotfix will be delivered, I will take it, and I will remain on the May version. It will not push me automatically to the latest. That's what quality updates are. They are for critical issues, so whenever you see them in the environment tile, in LCS, try to pick them up. And note that the hotfixes for non-critical issues, they will be released in upcoming service updates. So to summarize, on the maintenance part, do clean up and maintain production to keep it as healthy as possible. Keep the performance optimal, ultimately. Plan to take all the service updates and to pause by exception. A simple thing to do is to create a calendar, the year, use this as the baseline so that you know when you should take the service updates, when you should pause, as per your business. Monitor production using the telemetry, and you can refer to the tech talk called Performance Troubleshooting Tools. Consider the additional performance testing after go live. If you have a new go live, so new scope, new user, new transactions, and so on. And do aim at taking again all the service updates, because then you will benefit from the servicing. Or doing the regression testing, when you are about to take a service update, you can consider to use AirSat, to use the task automation framework. We see plenty of customers investing in it, and they do get a benefit. You should not automate the tests just for the sake of automating them. You should focus on the critical scenarios to you, where you spend currently a lot of manual effort and which are covered by AirSat or by the task automation framework. If you do so, it will really help you to be efficient with regression testing and save resources. Resources being time and people. At this stage, we've covered the 3 key aspects after go live to keep production operational. It's very important that you formalize this in a responsivity matrix. something as basic as this. The table is coming actually from the Cloud Service Operations Guide, and it shows the different actions that are performed by Microsoft and that should be performed by the customer. But we stop to this column. We're going to share with you this Excel spreadsheet so that you can actually do the exercise of completing the responsibility matrix with the integration pieces, for example, other aspects with the ISVs, and so that you can actually feel who will take care of this in your organization. If it's going to be the project team, the IT operations team, or the partner. Because if IT operations team is going to now take care of the code deployment for production, they should be trained. They should have the procedures described and defined, and maybe some shadowing as well, so that the transition happens and they are confident with taking the action. It will serve you whether you're not live yet, so before go live, or if you are live and you are not 100% sure of who is taking care of what. Finally, we've put different resources that we think you should read or watch that cover the servicing, the supporting, and the maintenance. To go through each of them to learn more about the tools, about the processes that are available. Especially, for example, on AirSat, the regression suite automation tool, we just published the hands-on lab, how to install it, how to use it. And it's now on docs. So you have the step-by-step procedure to discover the tool and start using it. That was basically it for this tech talk. I hope that you could learn a thing or two. So back to you, Janice.
All right, thank you, Christopher. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to take a moment here and bring your attention to a link that I just posted in the Q&A panel. That's a link to a short survey for this web conference. We ask that you please take a moment before logging out to access it. We hope that you found today's information helpful, and if you enjoyed today's web conference, have feedback on how we can provide you with a better event, or you'd like to submit topics for future web conferences, this is your chance to let us know. The survey scores are on a scale from 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest score possible. And that is going to conclude today's web conference. Attendees can access the web conference recording via the same registration link that was used to attend today's live broadcast. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenter, Christopher, and thank you, audience, for logging in and joining us today.